People get lost in the details and trying to get up close to it when they are real far from it. So just get in you don't need to worry about whether or not the last 10 steps to the top of the mountain are something you scramble up or there's stairs, because you're still 15 miles away. Just keep marching for now. Yeah. Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. My name is Paul Adams, CEO, founder of Sound Financial Group, joined today by Corey Shepard, who is our president, fearless leader, all-around nice guy, and a man who, for some reason, all throughout COVID, never seemed to end up with a bad set of hair. So glad you could be here, Corey.
That's because my wife, who's trained extensively in various medical procedures, used that mind and brain, researched YouTube videos, and started cutting my hair. So I have a professional stylist in-house. It's been amazing.
I didn't tell you this, Corey. I was this close to shaving my head, but I was worried that perhaps the large butterfly tattoo I have that covers my scalp would throw people off on the podcast.
Might throw people off on the podcast.
Decided we would skip it.
Yeah.
So
that's not to say that there weren't some hairy moments like, oh, this guard is shorter than I thought. I was like, oh, okay, well, it's free, so I can complain about that much.
And look at the bright side. At least she wasn't blindfolded being directed by other team members of Sound Financial Group over Zoom.
Forever, there'll always be that. And if anyone listening has not seen that episode, please go find it now. Just pause this one and go and listen to that. And then come back.
Well, and today, guys, we're going to be talking about getting vaccinated against lifestyle addiction. Now, it's a little strange we are where we are now. We've had the vaccine out for months. A huge amount of our older and most vulnerable Americans have been vaccinated. And we're all getting ready to soon be able to kick the doors open and go back out into our lives. We hope in a very similar way to the way we enjoyed them before. And yet, what is talked about a lot in the media is like people are investing more, people are doing this and people are doing that, but we're missing something key. And that is that there's things that we used to do that we would say, oh, that absolutely has to stay in my life, or my life would be terrible without it.
And I could never live without that.
Never live without. And it's been a year. It's been over a year. And we've done fine. And so it gives us a unique look at breaking something that our friend Jim McGovern talks about as lifestyle addiction. And this is that thing that we all see in our lives when we think about like, oh, where should I be spending money or not spending money? It's very difficult to pull back. And it's not just a personal psychological phenomenon. This is the thing I would have you think about. It's also this social phenomenon. Corey, you and I have both gone through different things that we've done to work to live radically within our means. And as we've done that, and especially in the process of doing it, you get all kinds of inquiries. Like, I remember when we moved from our McMansion. That's the, very large but cookie cutter house we used to have before we decided to live our new lifestyle. And I remember we were talking to our housekeeper and we literally said, hey, we got a new house. We're going to be moving. It's only a couple of miles away and it's about half this size, but you've been working for us for years and never increased your rate. So if you're okay with it, let's just keep your pay the same and all of that, and then just have you start cleaning our new house after the remodel's done. It'll be, a couple months. And it took her about a week or two. And then she came back when it was just my wife and her one-on-one, and she goes, is everything okay? She has an accent, and I'm terrible at accents, so I won't even say what accent it is. So it's better to not know.
Don't even do the accent. Don't even do the.
It's like a raffle for people. They can decide what accent it might be. Is something wrong with Paul's job or Paul's business? And my wife was shocked, literally having just had the conversation with her the prior week about we want to pay you the same. We want you to continue to work with us. We're just making a choice to live deeper within our means. And even our one of effectively an employee, a vendor, somebody we pay money to said, is everything okay? And I think there's something in the back of our heads that gnaws at us whenever we make a change like that.
And I was going to say that people, might be saying, hey, I've survived this last year. I wouldn't say I'm fine living the way we've lived. And we all get that. You're going to have a chance to turn things back up, but consider all the different areas that you might say, oh, I don't have to turn that up as far as it was before. And where could you find some pieces that you can really capture that financial win from the year that we've had?
Indeed. And what we're going to be able to talk about today is just this idea of how you can build your financial independence, how you can vaccinate yourself from some of they're very compelling narratives that are just floating around out there in the marketplace that seduce us into transacting with people, to giving our money away. And when we're giving our money away, in the book, Your Money or Your Life, I love what they put it down to, which is just doing the math down to the hour. That if I pay my landscaper $100, how many, what fraction of my time was that worth? Now, that might not be a full hour for many of our listeners. We just got the windows replaced in the house. And so I could look at that and look at all the new windows and go, okay, that was this many hours of my life's energy spent away from my family in order to get that thing done. And so it's a great question to be in, is when we have a chance, anything in life, a move, a pandemic, maybe just a really hard winter for some of you in different parts of the country that might limit some of the things you could do, or you have to be inventive to keep your family entertained. Those are all opportunities to not just look at maybe what we're doing every day with our personal fitness, etc., but also what we're doing with our money. So we want to introduce you to just a few distinctions of what kind of spending you might have in your life. And we call them sufficiency, surplus, and superfluence. Now, we haven't talked about these in quite a while, but it's pretty simple. Corey, do you want to just first start talking about superfluence, then I'll hit sufficiency, and then we'll back into surplus for everybody?
Oh, we're going to do a pincer move.
Pincer
never
move,
done
yes.
That way. Yeah. So superfluence is I'm on a yacht money. I mean, you got your nautical themed Pashmina Afghan cruising around on your, 40 foot. It's, you're
40
paying
foot, 100 foot for superfluence.
Oh, no, you let me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Your 40 foot dinghy, you're like go fast boat to get to the chopper pad to then fly to your 100
to the real boat.
Foot, yeah. To the real boat.
Yeah.
Right.
That to Corey's point, superfluence is that amount of money that you read about for the person that took the company public and has $100 million. Okay. Then on the other end of the scale, you have sufficiency. And sufficiency, so think of superfluence as the capacity to acquire any luxury you could think of now. Every luxury you'd care to have. But then you've got sufficiency. And sufficiency is the other end of the scale. But sufficiency people sometimes interpret to mean like, oh, it's scarce or it's not enough. Like sufficiency is what is the amount of money that you need to make as a household to have a good life, annual income. That may come from investments, it might come from work, but what's that amount of money that's a good life for you and your family? No luxuries priced in, but gives you the ability to still have a good life inside of it. So for some of you, and I can share with you a little bit what it was like for me and my wife, was to start with enough healthcare, enough safe neighborhood, good enough education for the kids, clothing that's suitable, all that.
Good enough. Like good enough is a great phrase in there. The philosopher John Dewey says that which will do. Like you look at it and you're like, that'd do. It's not everything you want and more, but it's nothing that you absolutely don't want either.
Yeah, or my rancher cousin of Wyoming doesn't say that will do. He says it'll do.
It'll do.
It'll do. So, but that's it. It'll do. We can have a good life inside of it. You know, we don't necessarily have to have, you know, the new car. Maybe you don't even have to have 2 cars at your sufficiency level. Now, as you're listening and thinking about this, everybody's sufficiency is different. We have clients where their sufficiency number is $20,000 a month. And we have other clients who live amazingly within their means and despite making good income, spend $2,500 a month. Now, that's, you know, no kids and all that. Yeah. But you'd be amazed. Like I was talking to one of our clients who has that, you know, kind of life right now, like really saves a good chunk of his income, etc. And the way he put it to me, he says, I'm just really blessed by the fact that most of what I enjoy is the outdoors. And because I spend so much time outdoors, it doesn't cost much. And I thought, well, that is a neat distinction. So after thinking about sufficiency, you get into surplus. Now, surplus is some luxuries that you sort of care about. Like you'd like to have, like, you know, like I like having my kayak and my RV, but we could do without those things. But for now, we like them and we keep having them. But if it ever came to a sufficiency situation, which we're going to talk about in a minute, I would be perfectly fine. My family would be perfectly fine. We've already talked about it. Now, when we think about how much is enough or wanting to know what our sufficiency would be, I want you to try to stretch your mind for a moment. Think about sufficiency being, I spend the amount of money that gives me the chance to have a good life with, you know, none of the luxuries. Like, no, yeah, I'm not flying first class. I'm not necessarily going to big fancy dinners, things like that. Who out there in the world, anywhere, has an interest in you exploring, understanding, or living at your sufficiency level of income? Now, I want you to, as Corey's going to say what he says next, I want you to just reflect on who is it that would want you to do that that's out in the world other than you. Go ahead, Corey, while they're thinking about that.
Yeah, I wanted to give them a second to ponder, but what occurred to me as you were saying that for the first time is not a single living soul has a vested interest in us exploring sufficiency. Now, some people or some actors or companies have a interest in us not, like they have a vested interest against it, but no one else, everyone else just like doesn't even care. The people walking by us on the street, people we know, it's just not a concern of theirs for no reason, good or bad. It just doesn't even occur to anyone else. And then that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is lots of institutions actively trying to keep us from going in that direction.
Yep, exactly. And let's give you just a few examples that just come up in everyday life. Do any restaurants have an interest in you living your sufficiency? Well, no, nothing against restaurants. But if you were thinking about your sufficiency, it probably involves making nice meals at home. And doesn't involve eating out every night of the week. That would be a surplus thing.
Right. And I like what you said. It's nothing against them. Mm-hmm. It's just not their interest. Because how could it be when their mission is to sell whatever they're selling? And that's good for them. And they'll need to do that to hit their sufficiency or surplus, which is fine. We just need to understand what it means for us.
And to understand that when we're in this conversation, you know, you listening, Corey and I talking, and hopefully you guys sending us emails about any insight this produced for you. Corey, would you be okay if we talked about what we used to do in our office as we were attracting and training advisors back when we used to have an office full of advisors, and what we did around their spending and trying to teach them these principles?
Not only am I okay with it, I'd love to start out with a story about me buying my first car before I got there. Yeah. So working at a big box financial institution, start making just enough money to have some extra money, and like, oh, it's time to get a new car. Now, my truck was actively sending smoke out of the steering column, so it wasn't like I was just like, oh, let's just start spending. But in doing that search, I did end up spending more money on a car than I ought to have spent at that time. Definitely more proportionally than I would now by a long shot. Yet when I brought that car back to the office and started showing folks around, which you think about this, it's hard to get.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Corey, but this just hit me. Oh, only because, of course, Corey and I know each other's finances, but that car would be the equivalent of you buying like a Rolls Royce
Maserati,
brand new Maserati. Like it would have to be a $250,000 plus car to equal the proportion of your income that you were deploying on the other car when you bought it in terms of gross purchase price.
I suspect that'd be the case. It'd be fun to actually do that math and figure
I think
out.
we need to.
So,
that is great.
Yeah. And so, but we've talked recently about how hard it is to actually have people you're transacting with or in the public see your car. Like you're going to meet for lunch. Who sees your car? Because you're parking somewhere else. So thinking back to that, I had to actively get them down to the parking garage to see this car. And a lot of people did. And all they said was, hey, nice job. And they all knew my finances too, because we all had our leaderboards and things, like they could figure out about how much I was making. But all I got was oh, nice work. Good job. Nothing about like, are you putting enough away for your future? Did you actually get disability insurance to protect your family, let alone talk to any of our clients about it? That's a whole other story, or it'll make me cry if I keep talking long about that. But so then I meet Paul and join him at Sound Financial Group, and it's embarrassing because I have a nicer car than the founder of the company. And then when it's time for me to get a new car, because that one started having some problems. I have a thing about cars breaking trust. Once they break trust, they're dead. They're dead to me. But I sat down with Paul and I said, I got a problem. Like, I'm going to need to get a new car, but I'm worried about what that's going to do to our culture when I show up with a brand new car. And we had to figure out a narrative and kind of a line in the sand to draw about what that should look like. Totally different culture. And then to your point, Paul, and that ended up hurting us financially.
It did. And
over the short term.
Yeah. Yes. Great point. And this happens in a lot of organizations. It just speaks to how everybody else has an interest in you being able to spend more. Because financial firm owners from across the country who I get a chance to meet at conferences, et cetera, it's a consistent thing that's said is, man, as soon as they start making money, get them to buy a new nice car, get them to buy a big nice house, encourage them to do those things because it will keep them motivated because you've increased their overhead so much.
That's a new minimum amount of revenue that they will do every month.
That's it. And now, and I want to give you how bad that was. As a young man, when I first started working for a company that rhymes with Northwestern Mutual. So more Western Mutual and working there. I left there after 18 months, 20 years of age with like $40,000 of credit card debt and being cheered on by my sales manager about how I was quote unquote investing in my business. And it was a great lesson just getting out of that and making good decisions afterward and really influenced me forever. But it hurt Corey and I because our advisors had more freedom and autonomy to not have to grind 55 hours a week because they didn't produce the situation where they had this high cost of living. And so nobody has an interest in you understanding what your sufficiency is. And we're going to take a real quick commercial break here from Sound Financial Group. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about how that impacts capital at work and what you can do right after this podcast to make a difference for you and your family in your future. Paul Adams here at Sound Financial Group. Are you curious what you can accomplish with our help? You're here enjoying the show. Our philosophy is helping you increase your effectiveness with money, and now we have a way to help you take another step on your financial journey. We have designed a financial inquiry call for you and the thousands of other listeners of Your Business, Your Wealth. This is a complimentary 15-minute conversation where one of our team members will ask you some key questions, understand your concerns, and if appropriate, schedule a time for further conversation with an advisor. If you look at the episode description, you'll see a link to schedule a call at a time that's least invasive for you. And even if now's not the right time for us to work together, we'll point you toward resources to help you in your financial journey. We always look forward to connecting with our listeners, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Welcome back, and now we're talking about capital at work. So just a quick distinction, we get this question a lot, like, when you say capital at work, Paul, does that mean my net worth? No.
Nope.
Your capital at work is the amount of money that you have in assets. And we define an asset as anything that puts money in your pocket now or could put money in your pocket later without changing your lifestyle. So this does not count my house. It does not count my RV. It doesn't count your boat. It doesn't count your Tesla. Like, all those things are they're assets to a bank if you're pledging them for collateral, but in terms of you being able to build financial independence, they are not part of your capital at work to produce a lifestyle for you. Now, we've been talking about sufficiency, surplus, and superfluence, but let's talk about what a big deal this makes, and really what I think can be nearly everybody's kind of ejection seat that they can utilize to give their families more financial confidence and peace during, weird times, which we've had a weird last 18 months for sure. And it ain't going to be the last time unless you get hit by a truck tomorrow. Right. So we're going to have a bunch more of these. If you're in your 40s, like every decade, there's some weird stuff and you got a lot of decades left. So let's just take a family who figures out that one of the things that they could do when they do their sufficiency math, this doesn't mean, I can't emphasize this enough. This doesn't mean you have to live a sufficiency lifestyle. It just means you should identify what your sufficiency lifestyle is.
Right. Like surplus could be your goal, but you don't have to shoot for sufficiency, but think about what you need to do to make sure that you can't go any lower than sufficiency. We got to lock that in as the floor.
Indeed. And you can quickly also cultivate contentment in your own life to not get seduced by the next new thing that comes out that's going to take your capital away from you, or I should say, cause you to freely give away your capital for something. And you can shield yourself against that because you know what it takes for you to have a good life. So if we just take a family, and let's say their current spending is $20,000 a month, and they go through this exercise. Now, there's probably not much they want for. That'd be a household maybe making $500,000 a year, paying some taxes, setting aside some money, and then spending $20,000 a month after tax. Very normal. And that $20,000 a month that they're setting aside gives them a pretty good life. There's no real compromises that they care about. There's probably a decent amount of luxuries in their life. It's a good. They're
not buying the 100-foot yacht with that money, but basically anything else that they want, they can have.
Exactly right. But for that person, it's going to take $6 million of capital at work to be able to get there, to be able to replace that level of lifestyle. And that's only going to produce the $20,000 a month, not the taxes. Okay, so just to frame that properly. But it's a good rubric to be able to use. And you can, when you get close, you can dial it in tighter. Okay, guys, like people get lost in the details and trying to get up close to it when they are real far from it. So just get in you don't need to worry about whether or not the last, 10 steps to the top of the mountain are something you scramble up or there's stairs, because you're still 15 miles away. Just keep marching for now.
Yeah.
So that sufficiency for that same family, if they went and did all the math and they said, well, I had to take my family. We could either, if we really needed to get to sufficiency tomorrow, we could either get rid of the house, sell it, and live in the RV, or get rid of the RV and just cut that out of our lifestyle. Both of those things drop our our impact of our life. And yes, are we making a compromise? Yeah, that I wouldn't rather make. But if I was in a situation that I just needed to stop working, disability, something else, we have disability income insurance, all of that. But if something strange happened, I've got the ejection seat. And the ejection seat is knowing my sufficiency. And then being aware that my capital at work could handle it if we needed to. So if the same family's sufficiency budget, as they've done it and they work, they're like, we could get by on 10 grand a month if we needed to. Well, then that means two things. One, once they have 3 million of capital at work, I would say they don't have definite financial independence because they're not living off of their passive income. But you might say they have financial independence on the bench. It's up next at bat. Now they can continue growing their 3 million to get up to 6 million to replace their surplus, or if something changes tremendously in their life. Maybe their industry gets regulated away in the new administration, whatever they do for a living. Maybe there's a big economic calamity that destroys their industry. A key partner leaves, a lawsuit wipes out their business. Whatever it is, and suddenly, maybe it's just ageism pushes you out of corporate America. Whatever those things are, now suddenly you sit back and go, no, I've got enough that if we drop it to sufficiency, we're real good shape. And imagine what that conversation is like for your spouse. Oh, bless you, Corey.
Thank you.
Dang near blew his elbow off with that one. So, for those of you listening on the podcast, he sneezed into his elbow.
I think if you hadn't said anything, Jordan could have just taken that out of there, but that's okay.
We could also have Jordan take all of this out.
All of this out.
We'll leave it up to Jordan whether or not he wants to do that. But all of that is an awareness of how close we are to financial independence. Is it in the wings? Because what we want to do first is pursue sufficiency. Know what our sufficiency is. Build our sufficiency. Doesn't mean we have to live that lifestyle immediately. And then Corey was saying while we were on break, the most important thing, Corey, about going from sufficiency to surplus is what?
Well, you don't have to have sufficiency as a target. We talk about it a lot, and you might think, oh, so we're just all hoping to have the very minimum that we can be happy with. No, we can all want to live a life of surplus, but consider how valuable it is to know that sufficiency is locked in, that you're behaving in a way that you're not compromising that, so that no matter what happens, if you're going to fall, that's as far as you fall, and you still have a minimal good life. I think that's really important.
Like a great example would be, let's say you had financial independence in the wings, and I'll just pick this example.
How about from our book?
Yeah.
How about a good? No, you can.
Your business, your wealth.
Right. Well, there's a story we tell in a book of someone Paul was interviewing with, or interviewing for a job at our firm, and what was it? Man, I'm forgetting. It wasn't billionaire. It was 100 million.
No. He was a legit billionaire, and he was interviewing with the CEO of a firm that I used to be an SVP for. And he came in and he had, long story short, sold a big internet company, was wrapped up in the AOL Time Warner thing, legit billionaire back in 2005 through 2007, hired a whole bunch of real high-speed MBAs and certified financial analysts and bought a bunch of commercial real estate. And you might imagine how that went in 2009. He went from being a legitimate 3 billionaire to, well, he would have liked, he didn't know. He didn't know you could go past zero. You could fall so fast that you couldn't even say hello to zero on your way by as you go in the negative. And when asked, can I ask, when you were at the height of your wealth, how big of a deal would $50 million have been? To just set $50 million aside to secure your sufficiency forever. And the guy's like, oh, I could have written a $50 million check. If you asked for it on a Monday, I could have had the liquid funds ready by Friday. And he said, well, what would that be worth to you now? And the guy's eyes just filled with tears. And he said, a fifth of that would change everything for us. And that's the difference. Yep. We've got to protect our sufficiency. Sufficiency first. Never jeopardize sufficiency to build surplus. So what you don't want to do is be on that place or near that place where sufficiency is in the wings, independence is in the wings, and you go, great, I'm going to take $1 million and buy cryptocurrency. Or I'm going to take $500,000 and put in GameStop because I'm going to the moon with my diamond hands, which I do like the diamond hand memes. I don't want to be honest with you guys. I think they're hilarious. But you could blow your financial independence because you pressed too hard on the gas, you pursued surplus too hard, or maybe you're shooting for what your version of Superfluence would be, all while jeopardizing sufficiency. So sufficiency first, protect your sufficiency, and build the surplus. So what can you guys do today? Well, one of the first things you do is have your spouse, have your partner just listen to this episode and then have an intentional conversation about it and just build out what would your sufficiency budget be? You know, we all do fire drills in commercial buildings, you know, back when we used to go into commercial buildings. And this is your final drill for your balance sheet is if you needed to, what would sufficiency look like? And how would you be happy there? It will actually help you break lifestyle addiction just to do that because you'll understand all the places you're spending that maybe you don't even care about now. You know, like when I discovered, and by the way, we review our finances a lot, both in the business and on the personal side, at least monthly. We still find stuff that we've been paying for over a year that we didn't use and we just missed it somehow.
Yep.
So you discover those things, you weed them out of the budget, the things that don't matter, and you're able to point at sufficiency. You're able to point at a number of capital that you need to replace. Now, this is not about the tax planning and investment planning. How do you do that? Well, just know what it takes income-wise for you to have sufficiency. Then later, you can listen to some of other episodes. You could call us if you want help with it, or you could just read a book on money and have an understanding of how much capital it takes to be able to produce that sufficiency income that you want. But the thing nobody talks about is you understanding what you need to have minimally a good life. We're all pursuing a good life, but many of us haven't even done the math of what it takes to get there. Now, Corey actually has a great review we're going to read to you today, and a call out because whoever wrote this review did not email us the review to get a free copy of our new book, Your Business, Your Wealth. So Corey, could you read that off and give our listener instructions because they didn't use their real name. We don't know their name.
All we know is it's JH139 is the username. Now they might be listening because here's the review. My wife and I have been listening to this podcast for a couple of years now. The amount of knowledge we've taken away from it feels like an absolute steal and better than any course I've heard of so far. Thank you guys so much. P.S. It's also very entertaining. So, JH139, please email us at info@sfgway.com with your address so we can send you a copy of our book. And anybody that wants to give an honest review, doesn't have to be as glowing as that one, just honest, you can do that. Send us a screenshot of the review to info@sfgway.com, and we'd love to send you a copy of one of our books.
Guys, we're glad that you could be with us today for this inquiry. To think about what it takes to secure your sufficiency, set yourself up for surplus, to build the escape hatch from the lifestyle we might all enjoy today, to break the lifestyle addiction and put yourself on the path to financial independence, which no one has an interest in but you. And the reason we're telling you about it is we just want you to be financially independent alongside all of us, because your ability to be able to do that will change your life and the life of your family forever when you pick up that freedom and autonomy. Even if you still work, being able to be financially free is an amazing, amazing place. And the closer you get to it and the better you understand it, really, the more the juices of life show up. So with that, we hope that this episode has been a contribution to you being able to design and build a good life. Hey guys, so glad you could tune in and watch that video. I want to remind you to subscribe, be sure to hit the notification bell so you can get the latest piece of financial knowledge we release. And don't forget, go to Amazon, get a copy of Sound Financial Advice. Why? Because it'll make you better looking and smarter.